Welcome back, everybody. This is part two of my analysis and predictions videos for UFC 238 coming up this Saturday, June 8th, out of Chicago, Illinois. Make sure you check out part one. In part one, we covered the first two fights on the main event: Tai Tuivasa versus Blagoy Ivanov and Jimmy Rivera versus Piotr Yan. We also covered the four fights on the preliminary card, so make sure you check that out. In this video, part two, we're going to do the last three fights on the main card. So the people's main event, Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone. The co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Ai. And the main event, Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes. So to kick things off, the third fight on the main event, Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone, coming out of the lightweight division. Tony Ferguson, number 2 ranked, 24-3 in his MMA career. Donald Cerrone, number 4 ranked, 36-11 in his MMA career. So the Vegas odds for this fight, Bovada has Tony Ferguson a minus 140 favorite. So this is sort of a tale of two tales here. Tony Ferguson is one of the least active fighters in the lightweight division. Not because he's always holding out, but he's always getting hurt and things like that. He's fought twice since November 2016, so very inactive versus the most active fighter on the UFC roster in any division in Cowboy Cerrone, who it feels like he fights every month. So this is really a truly historic fight. Tony Ferguson holds the current record for longest win streak in the UFC lightweight division history at 11. So if he gets a win against Cowboy Cerrone, he'll extend that record to 12. Cowboy holds the record for most wins in UFC history, most finishes in UFC history, most post-fight bonuses in UFC history. So it's truly a historic fight here. And, these two guys, number 2 versus number 4, the winner of this fight should absolutely get a crack at the title, should get the winner of Khabib versus Dustin Poirier. Can't guarantee that because we've got a guy in this division by the name of Conor McGregor who, if he decides to come back and fight, who knows what the UFC is going to do with him. A side note though, just my thoughts, after he got rolled by Khabib, I think he does need one more fight to get another shot at the title. And I think either Al Quinta or specifically Justin Gaethje would be an excellent matchup for Conor McGregor, and I think 2 fights we would all love to see. But that's neither here nor there. Looking at Tony Ferguson and Cowboy Cerrone when it comes to striking, I go through striking and the ground game in these videos when I'm doing analysis, and both of these categories were just extremely hard to come up with somebody who has an advantage in this fight. So when it comes to striking, I don't know. Both of these guys have unreal cardio. They're tough as nails. They have knockout power, super clean technique. Like, the list goes on, but I'd give Cowboy the advantage when it comes to accuracy and one kick knockout power. We know Cowboy's got one of the best high kicks in the game. And so I'd give him the advantage there. He's a hell of a kickboxer with that high kick and throws hella good combinations. He's got good defense. I got to give the edge to Tony Ferguson when it comes to being tough as nails and having constant, unrelenting forward pressure. He just has a pace that is super difficult for even somebody with really good cardio to keep up with. Tony Ferguson might have the best cardio in the UFC. And he seems to always cut everybody up that he fights. And so I think Tony's forward pressure, his pace, and he's probably going to cut Cowboy up pretty well. I think that might present some problems in the later rounds. So looking at the statistics, though, so Tony, out of his 24 wins, he's finished 11 of them by knockout, so that's good for 46%, almost half of his fights. For Cowboy, out of his 36 wins, 10 of them come by knockout, so it's 28%. So statistically, Tony Ferguson has a better chance at getting the KO or TKO finish in this fight. But my gut is telling me that if this fight ends by KO or TKO, that it's going to be Cowboy who got that done. The opposite can be said when it comes to the ground game. So both of these fighters are legit black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like legit black belts. But statistically speaking, out of Tony's 24 wins, 8 of them have come by submission, so 33%. Whereas Cowboy submitted 17 of his 36 wins, which is good for almost half, 46% of his fights. So statistically, Cowboy has a better chance at getting the submission victory than Tony. But my gut is telling me that if somebody's going to win this fight via submission, it's going to be Tony. So my prediction for this fight, it's really tough, guys. I could go back and forth on this one all day. I've thought of reasons as to why both of these guys would win the fights, but I'm picking Tony Ferguson. And I think I'm mainly picking Tony Ferguson because Cowboy just a month ago was in a 5-round war with Ally Quinta. You know, nobody can escape Father Time, and although Cowboy looks better than ever, he's 36 years old, and a month ago he got in a 5-round war with Ally Quinta, and you can't just turn around and face a guy like Tony El Cucuy Ferguson on a month's notice and expect that to be sort of your best preparation for a fight against Tony. I just think that's really dangerous for Cowboy. And so for that reason, I'm picking Tony Ferguson to win this fight. He's the fresher fighter. He's dangerous everywhere. We know he's crazy. So I'm picking Tony Ferguson to win this fight. Give me Tony by 3rd round TKO. So in our co-main event for UFC 238, we got the flyweight championship on the line. We got the champ, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko versus the number 1 contender, Jessica Evil Eye. I'll be rooting for Jessica in this fight. She's a Cleveland, Ohio girl. I normally live in Virginia, but I'm back home in Cleveland, Ohio right now. So I'll be rooting for her. But boy, good luck to Jessica Eye. Valentina Shevchenko is a minus 1,200 favorite in this fight. She's the biggest favorite on the card, and it's the co-main event. Looking at striking, advantage Valentina. She's a multi-time world champion, Muay Thai and kickboxer, and UFC champion. Looking at the ground game, advantage Valentina. She has nasty ground and pound, good wrestling, and she submits 44% of her opponents. 44% of her wins have come by way of submission. Advantage Valentina. So, yeah, I don't mean to just breeze through the analysis on this fight. Good luck to Jessica. Love you, girl. You know, Cleveland, Ohio, what's up? But you've got a big, steep mountain to climb in this fight against Bullet. So my prediction for the fight, you know, Valentina, best female fighter on the planet, not named Amanda Nunes. And yes, I would rank Valentina Shevchenko above Chris Cyborg. So give me Valentina Shevchenko by 2nd round TKO. So for the main event, UFC 238, for the Bantamweight Championship, we got the number 1 contender, Marlon Magic Moraes, 22-5, versus the flyweight champ, Henry the Messenger Cejudo, 14-2 record. Vegas odds for this fight, Moraes is a minus 125 favorite. So slight favorite for Moraes. A little bit of background. In case you didn't know, Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling. Just kidding, you all knew that. And he's the current UFC flyweight champ. So he's coming off 2 very impressive wins. One over Demetrius Johnson, 5-round war. One over TJ Dillashaw while he was on steroids. 1st round TKO in like 35 seconds. Really impressive. So Marlon, he's only lost once since 2011. And that was against Rafael Sansao. He avenged that loss in very impressive fashion in his last fight. So he dropped Rafael with a couple of right hands and got the guillotine choke, End of story. So Marlon has been very impressive since losing to a Sun Sao, winning 4 in a row and finishing 3 of those fights, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission. So looking at striking, Henry is, of course, mostly known for being a wrestler, but he packs a ton of power in his little compact frame, and he really has improved his striking lately, as we've seen in the previous 2 fights. So incredibly fast, compact, powerful, and he's got cardio for days. So 5-round war, doesn't matter, he's not getting tired. Really improved his striking, but Marlon Moraes is built like he was sculpted out of a rock, this guy. He looks like a statue. And he's also a black belt in Muay Thai. So he's got great patience too, and a killer instinct. Beautiful high kicks. So in his 2 TKO finishes in his last few fights, they were set up by high kicks that were just beautiful. And he's got beautiful kicks in general. And I think that could present a lot of problems to Henry Cejudo. As we saw in the Demetrius Johnson fight, Demetrius was landing leg kicks for 5 rounds. And you better believe that Marlon Moraes is throwing heavier, more damaging leg kicks than Demetrius Johnson is. So I think those kicks could really present some problems for Henry Cejudo. But Marlon also, he's lightning fast, big power, big right hand, crisp technique. I think Marlon Moraes has a clear advantage when it comes to striking in this fight. And I'm not overlooking Henry Cejudo. He's got good striking as well, but I think that Marlon has a clear advantage in that aspect of this fight, particularly his kicking. So advantage Marlon. Looking at the ground game, though, you'd think that, Henry Cejudo, being the Olympic gold medalist that he is in freestyle wrestling, the clear advantage would go to Henry Cejudo. And he does have the advantage in that aspect, right? When it comes to wrestling and control and scoring points on the ground, Henry Cejudo definitely has the advantage there. But Marlon Moraes is a legit black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He just submitted Rafael in his last fight, as we saw. I mean, the guy has a killer instinct on the ground that Henry really needs to be aware of. I'm sure part of Henry's game plan in this fight, knowing how dangerous Marlon is on the feet, is going to be to take him down to the ground. And if and when he does that, he really needs to watch out for Marlon's jiu-jitsu. Otherwise, it could be game over for Henry. So based on point scoring and control, I'll give the advantage on the ground, the grappling advantage to Henry Cejudo, but watch out, Henry, for Marlon's jiu-jitsu. So my prediction for this fight: I'm going to be rooting for the American. I'll be rooting for the guy bumping up 10 pounds in weight class, taking on the heavier, bigger, more dangerous fighter. So I'll be rooting for Henry Cejudo, but I'm predicting Marlon Moraes to get this victory. For reasons just stated, Marlon is incredibly dangerous on the feet. He's very strong, very powerful, great cardio. And by the way, although this is a 5-round fight, and this is the first time that Marlon is going to be competing in 5 rounds in the UFC, this is not Marlon's first 5-round fight in his career. He's gone 5 rounds twice before. So this isn't new to him. I think that he's got the cardio to hang with Henry Cejudo should it go into the championship rounds. And I don't think that'll be a big problem for him. I just think that I just don't think Henry's wrestling is going to be enough to win this fight. And I don't envision Henry knocking Marlon out. Although I thought that was the case in the TJ fight, and I was wrong. But that was TJ dropping 10 pounds into the flyweight division to fight Henry. This is Henry moving up 10 pounds to fight Marlon in Marlon's territory. So I just think that it's a very dangerous fight for Henry Cejudo. I don't think the wrestling is going to be enough to win this fight. I think there are too many ways that Marlon can win the fight. I think it goes into the championship rounds. I think we have 3 rounds that are full of action, cardio, pace, wrestling and grappling. And I think in the 4th round, Marlon Moraes gets it done. I think he finishes him. I've been going back and forth between TKO and a submission. I think he hurts Henry Cejudo with either punches or a leg kick, knocks him down, and I think he gets the win via submission. So Marlon Moraes, 4th round submission. That's it for UFC 238, though. Thank you for watching, as always. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you haven't checked out part 1, I did the first 2 fights as well as the 4 fights on the preliminary card. Go check that out. And if you haven't already, I of course appreciate you liking the video and subscribing to my channel if you enjoy the content. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.